and I thank my honourable friend for Sutton and Sheen for securing this debate on government support for Thames Water. So what does government support for Thames Water look like? Our government, our current government, supports Thames Water by letting it breach the terms of its operating licence, by letting Ofwat ignore its own rules, by letting consumers take the pain of higher bills for no gain, letting financiers make out like bandits, and letting our rivers continue to be filled with sewage. What's shocking about this is it's a Labour government doing this. This government is turning out to be every bit as bad as the Conservatives were when it comes to protecting our rivers, and is completely ducking its responsibilities. It is within your powers as the Minister to take action. The Minister is the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Water and Flooding, for DEFRA. DEFRA oversees Ofwat. Ofwat issues operating licences to water companies. Here are some of the key requirements that Thames Water needs to comply with per its Ofwat-issued operating licence. Number 1. Operational requirement to comply with environmental and health standards. Thames Water is failing this requirement. As per the EA's data, and as my honourable friend has already said, in 2024, Thames Water discharged nearly 300,000 hours of sewage. That's 50% up on 2023. It's illegal to dump sewage in dry conditions, but this is repeatedly happening. Professor Peter Hammond, who lives in my constituency, monitored the Stanton Harcourt sewage treatment works in my constituency and found there have been 266 illegal spills in just a single sewage treatment works in a 4-year period. That's operating requirement, complete failure. Second one, financial viability requirement. Thames Water is failing this requirement because it has to have 2 licences of investment-grade credit ratings. Currently, it has no credit ratings that are investment grade. Standard & Poor's has the company's debt 12 notches below investment grade, and Moody's has it 9 notches below. That's as far deep into junk bond territory as you can get. This is because Thames Water now has 19 billion of debt and only 1.2 billion of cash flows in the last financial year to March 2024. 19 billion of debt, 1.2 billion of cash in. That is not sensible. It's not a sensible way to run a company. Everybody knows that. By allowing Thames Water to breach this rule, you introduce moral hazard into the entire sector, the water sector and also all other regulated sectors. Other water companies take note that there has been no material sanction of Thames Water and realise they can also likely get away with it. Of the nearly 1.4 billion of funding due to come into the company, 900 million of that is going straight out against in interest expenses, sweet financial goodies for hedge funds, and advisory fees. This is not fair on our bill payers. Customers are being royally stuffed, and Ofwat and your DEFRA team are standing by. Third, fair pricing requirements. There's a requirement to demonstrate fairness, transparency and affordability to customers, and Thames Water is failing in this one too. Bills have gone up, as many people have already said, by a headline of 31%. Many Witney constituents have written to me with increases of 50, 70 or even 93% increases. Thames Water has an application on top of this to add insult into injury into the CMA to increase bills even higher by 59%. Okay, fourth, ownership requirements. This one really gets my goat. Thames Water must inform Ofwat of any change to control. Ultimate controllers are defined in Ofwat's papers as a position of control or a position to materially influence the company. Thames Water's own advisers have publicly stated that the company, let's say it again. Thames Water's own advisers have publicly stated that the company is de facto controlled by its creditors. Ofwat is ignoring this. Ofwat extraordinarily, and this is in the last month, has written to me saying that despite it being publicly stated in the press that OMERS, which is one of its shareholders, has written its stake down to 0, has pulled its board representation off last May, is still actually controlling the company. Now, why is this going on? What could be going on here? It smells that...
Smells like...
Yes, it does. Because I think Ofwat is doing exactly what the company's creditors want them to do. And I'm wondering why that is happening, because it shouldn't be. Finally, a failure to innovate. There's a host of technologies out there, and far too often we hear the same old lines about Victorian sewers, cameras, and how impossible it all is. There's a huge range of leak detection, pipeline monitoring, protective maintenance, trenchless pipe repair, pressure management technologies. I hear from Oxfordshire firms it's easier to sell sewer technology solutions into the US and into Europe than it is into the UK. Something is going seriously wrong. We could start by looking at whether incentives are effectively aligned. I don't believe they are. So what are the consequences of this failure to act? You can lay a lot of the blame at the last government. That's fine. It's easy. But what we've got so far is we've had a Water Special Measures Act, which was more window dressing than action. I'm new to Parliament, and I was particularly dismayed that not a single word of a single proposed amendment from any party was accepted by you. Oh, sorry, by the Minister. Apologies. I wish in Parliament we all had enough confidence to accept good ideas where we find them. I live in hope. Certainly.
Thank you very much. Just to say, on that point, it's incorrect. Actually, amendments were discussed in the other place, across party, and a compromise amendment was agreed and reached on a few different occasions. So I just want to push gently back on that amendments in the other place, where it started, where the bill began, were actually discussed cross-party and put forward. So it's factually incorrect to say that no amendments were taken when that isn't actually true.
Charlie Maynard.
No amendments in the Commons, all 60 of them or whatever they were. Some of the rejections included putting flow meters on the outflows of sewage treatment works, sort of logical, establishing targets to reduce pollution over time using existing benchmarks of hours or spilled sewage, making capacity of sewage treatment works calculations more transparent, bringing environmental experts and consumer representatives onto water boards. So this Labour government is now allowing a public utility company to line the pockets of bankers and hedge funds at the expense of bill payers. As someone said in the FT's notes this week, with water, it's a total monopoly and a total shambles. It's a shambopoly, if you will. This government's support for Thames Water essentially amounts to unconditional support for the company's creditors at a direct and massive costs to its customers. So what do we need instead? First, we need to put the company out of its financial misery and to put it into special administration. Allow debt to be massively written down to something like 3 times cash flows or thereabouts. And by reducing that debt, the company will have a balance sheet which is sufficiently strong to allow it to invest in the infrastructure we so desperately need. And our bill payments will now start being spent on treatment and fixing treatment works and pipe networks rather than paying interest. We allow for water companies coming out of special administration to be mutually owned by their customers and professionally managed. And we set pollution baselines and pollution reduction targets, and we get serious about putting transparency, targets and technology to work to clean up our rivers. I believe the government is shying away from special administration option, which is clearly the most logical thing at this point, either because of threats of legal action against it, or phantasmagorical scenarios of financial Armageddon, or both. Do not let, please, Thames Water's lobbyists, including Ruth Kelly, ex-Labour Minister who is now chair of Water UK, scaremonger you out of taking action which 16 million consumers of your electorate need you to do. These scenarios are patently not true, and the best person to ask here is Thames Water. As per page 92 of Thames Water's advisor's own independent expert report, Teneo, they estimate that the net cost to the Treasury of taking the company into special administration, even in the worst case scenario, is 0. Page 92, please look it up. So instead, that we now have this bizarre situation where a Labour government is cheerleading American hedge funds and private equity funds to take over our largest water company and make a massive profit out of its customers. What goes for Thames Water will very likely go for the rest of the sector. So the signal you and your government is sending the sector and other... Sorry, I said...
don't wish to spoil the member's floor, but the conventions apply the same in Westminster Hall as they do in the main chamber. We do not use the word you or your in this chamber. Unless you're referring to myself.
Many apologies to the Chair and to the Minister. So the signal the Minister and the Government is sending this sector and other regulated sectors is simply terrible. All the customers in my Witney constituency and across the whole catchment really want at this point is reliable, affordable, clean water to our homes. We need local rivers and lakes which aren't having sewage poured into them on a near daily basis. And we want a government who is serious about putting the interests of customers and our rivers before the interests of hedge funds and private equity funds. Please stop letting us down.